The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third Thursday webinar. I'm Margot Hoffman from the Partnership for Excellence, and on behalf of the California Council for Excellence, the Mid-Atlantic Alliance for Performance Excellence Northeast, Oklahoma Quality, Quality New Mexico, Southwest Alliance for Excellence, and the Partnership for Excellence, I welcome you to our September webinar, where our presenter is Paul Wurstel, retired president of 2007 Baldrige recipient ProTech Coating Company, and he's going to be presenting a culture, creating a culture of excellence. Before we get started, I have a few things to go over. We'll have some announcements, and then we'll introduce our webinar speaker. And of course, we'll have today's session. We'll have some interaction in there. And then we'll allow for questions at the end and introduce our October webinar. If you look at your control panel, you can see that there is a place to put questions. There's also a chat box. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can type them in the question box and I will share them with Paul. And then we are going to pose a couple questions during the presentation that will have you put some responses in the chat box. Because of the number of attendees, we have muted everyone. So we prefer that you type things in one of those two boxes. We have some upcoming events at some of our programs. Oklahoma has a best practice conference October 14th and 15th. The MATE program has their annual conference on November 9th. And you can see here there are links to go to each of the program's events webpage to see upcoming activities that they're having. Another activity that's taking place next month is the Baldrige Fall Conference. This is a virtual conference, and there will be not only National Baldrige recipients presenting their best practices, but there will be some state level, and there will be a keynote speaker and other performance excellence experts presenting at this conference. So if you are interested in learning more, you can go to baldrigeconference.org to learn more and to register. I want to thank all of our organizational members. We are 501(c)(3) organizations, so we appreciate the support that our organizational members give to us. We couldn't do what we do without the support of them. So thank you to all of you that support the state and regional programs. And now I would like to introduce my good friend, Paul Wurstel. And he is going to talk to us about a culture of excellence, but he's going to look at it from the perspective of operationalizing culture by focusing on process. And Paul is the leader, or is the owner of Lead Learn Coach, and he brings over 45 years of leadership and strategic planning experience to his clients. He was recently president and CEO of the Finley Family YMCA, and prior to that, he was a client coach for 6 Disciplines Consulting Services. In 2010, he retired from ProTech Coating Company in Leipzig, Ohio, and that's a joint venture partnership of U.S. Steel and Kobe Steel of Japan. After serving for 12 years, Paul retired, but during his tenure there, ProTech received the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award in 2007. Prior to that, he spent 27 years with U.S. Steel's operations in the Pittsburgh area. So welcome, Paul, and we are excited to hear your message today.
Well, thank you, Margot. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. You are giving me the opportunity to do one of my favorite things, to be around Baldrige folks and to talk about ProTech Coating Company, one of the greatest privileges and honors that I have experienced in my life. We're going to talk about a culture of excellence today and approaching it with a focus on process. I don't think anyone's going to hear something today that they hadn't heard or thought before. but hopefully there may be a few nuggets there that might be a reminder and say, there might be some application in our organization. So again, as we all know, every organizations have a culture. Now, that doesn't mean that every organization's culture is good or is healthy, but every organization does have culture, and culture is defined by our values, and our values are defined by our organizational behaviors. So we can think of examples out there where organizations or groups of individuals engage in something that isn't real positive, and yet they have a set of values that they live by, and it clearly defines their culture. Next slide, Morgan. So the goal today is to present culture as process through examples of personal, strongly held beliefs. And I'd like to emphasize that. At some point here, we're going to say, gee, this guy thinks he's an expert on something. I'm an expert on nothing. What I'm sharing with you are just that, strongly held beliefs, and hopefully from the examples that we look at and talk about today, again, there may be some opportunities for application in your organization. So I'd like to cover 5 themes. 1, clarity of purpose. The second, over communication. 3, building trust. 4, clear expectations of behavior. And finally, creating a clear line of sight, and how these affect a culture of excellence. So first, let's think and talk a little bit about clarity of purpose. Certainly in the Baldrige world, we're very much aware of how important leadership's role in deploying mission, vision, and values are throughout the organization. And we know that mission is a definition of what's our purpose. Why do we exist? Values are enduring beliefs that describe what is important to our organization. And vision is clear, concrete picture of what the organization will look like in future pursuit of its mission. Clear, very, very clear image of what a future state will look like, and allow us to develop strategies to move from our current condition to that future state. Next, Martin. So some thoughts around clarity of purpose, and much of that has to do with our mission and core values, those core beliefs to any organization. And it's been my experience that it's really important to be able to clarify that, display mission and values throughout your organization, rather than putting it on a plaque and hang it on a wall, paint it on a wall. And just symbolically, it makes it permanent. People say, oh, we're serious about this. Displaying mission and values throughout the facility and deep in the organization. Get creative in ways that you can display your mission and values. So it's in front of folks, and folks are aware of it. Include mission statements on business cards, letterhead, emails, issue business cards to every employee. Now, I don't know how practical that is. It was quite practical for us at Protec. We were a large company with not a lot of employees. That's changed since I've retired. Protec has doubled in size, but when we were at 236 employees, it was the best investment we could make in our employees, and trying to make clear our beliefs and our mission. And so on that business card is the mission. It was a great source of pride for newly hired employees, entry-level positions, having a business card saying, yeah, I work at Protech Coating Company, and here's what we believe. Place mission and values at the top of website, homepage. Again, just get creative and be able to display your core beliefs everywhere. Next slide. So this would be an opportunity for those on the webinar to share with us some ideas that you may have on getting creative and deploying your mission, vision, and values deep into the organization.
So you can type your thoughts into the chat box. Some of the unique ways that your organization makes their mission, vision, and values visible to all stakeholders, not just internally within your organization, but to maybe other stakeholders. We have a shy bunch today. Okay, we have some in the. We put our values on the back of our employee badges. That's from Jonda. Thank you, Jonda.
Great idea.
I've seen, Paul, where some organizations put them on their POs with their suppliers so that they can get it out to the suppliers.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. I had it later in the presentation, but let's talk about it now. I think a learning for us at Protech was that mission values, mission and core values, apply to all of our stakeholders. And, you know, in business, oftentimes we think of our customers. I guess in slang, it was we would schmooze our customers and beat up our vendors, trying to endear ourselves to our customers and drive our suppliers, our vendors, to lowest cost. And that really is not best practice. I would submit that those stakeholders, key stakeholders like vendors, suppliers, the community partners, community friends, are very much as valuable as our customers and our current workforce. So again, it was a learning for us, and having vendors and community partners as key stakeholders and knowing that they are in that relationship and are and we share our values and how we engage with them was vitally important to us.
That's great. Yeah.
So, there, Margaret? Okay. Yeah, my phone is.
And one other comment I was going to make is, I know, you know, Larry Potterfield, who leads Midway USA, and I've heard him talk about how they actually have their values carved into the sidewalk, walking up to each of their facilities. And they actually had their employees, that each of their employees, I think, got to carve in one of those or put one of those letters in for the values, so that they all took some ownership in having their values very visible to everyone when they walked up to the building.
I have had the pleasure of seeing that walk. It's real. It is.
Here's another one. Link recognition strategies to those we role model the core values.
I love it. We're moving into theme 2 here, but we can keep talking about it while we're here. I encourage that. I think that is a great idea. Thanks for sharing that. And every opportunity to link change, things that are occurring in the organization, both good and bad. If you're celebrating a success or you're introducing a policy that you may get a little pushback on, every effort that we can make to disconnect it from an individual and align it with our core beliefs really it was my experience, makes it much more effective and much more accepted by the team.
Okay, are you ready to move on, Paul?
Sure, let's go. Okay, so we're going to cover every cell on this slide. That was a poor attempt at humor. But at Protech, we have a serious focus on process. And this was actually an OFI from one of our Baldrige site visits. And so the result of that OFI was to get very, very intentional in understanding how we communicate with our organization. We segmented the types of communication in that first column on the left, determined who was the sender, who is the desired receiver, what form does the communication take, how do we verify that there is two-way communication if we're searching for that, is it a one-way communication, and how do we confirm understanding. This is an example of what we did. I wouldn't suggest to anybody else that you follow the same example, but give some thought to how it might be deployed in your organization. Next. Well, here are examples of organizations that have over-communicated their mission and values. This happens to be a Kobe compressor company in Southern California. We became great friends with the folks there. And in their monthly newsletter, there was always a panel on the left that showed their beliefs, and there was always a message from the senior leader, and always he made an effort to align his monthly message with core beliefs. The panel on the bottom is our employee orientation program. Now, again, Protech, everyone's situation is different and unique. Ours was a large steel processing facility with lots of safety concerns and lots of reasons to have our individuals well-trained, invested a lot of time in orientation before they ever went out on the shop floor. So our orientation program lasted about 2 weeks. However, every group of new employees that came in would be welcomed by our HR director, that's Shannon Chartel, and the next person they would see was the president of the company. That was me. This happens to be Brian Vaughn, who was my successor when I retired in May of 2010. So we show this one for two reasons. One, it was what we believed to be best practice, so that new associate, when they showed up and were ready to participate in 2 weeks of orientation, would remember that the first person that they heard from was the president of the company. And I like this slide because it was a practice that transcended presidents. The successor adopted the practice and continued it. And we didn't deviate from this. If for some reason we weren't available on that day out of the country, we would delay orientation, so that was the practice that every employee experienced, hearing from the president talking about mission values, safety, and core beliefs. And we talked a little about this one already. Always link business changes to mission, vision, and values. Never give an impression that your leader is just creating some crazy idea. Search for opportunities to talk about mission, vision, and values. So every time we would be in a public forum presenting the annual Protech Scholarship at the local high school, celebrating in any form, or speaking to the community or speaking to the press in situations where we were delivering news that wasn't so good, we would always attempt to align it to our core beliefs and not have it be an individual's opinion. Ensure effective, meaningful communication. Getting in a rhythm of having morning huddles, one-on-one meetings, weekly, monthly updates. Those types of activities really help define your culture. Again, opportunities to include your core beliefs, but more important, opportunities to create a rhythm and be predictable in how you communicate. Next slide, Margaret. Let's talk a little bit about building trust. Leaders exhibit humility with an iron will or fierce resolve. I think most everyone has had an opportunity at some time to read Good to Great, and Jim Collins' team in Good to Great defined level 5 leadership as leaders having those rare characteristics of extreme humility and fierce resolve. I think that are very, very important characteristics in creating a culture of excellence. I can't say that we were level 5 leaders, but we sure use those examples in an effort to lead using those philosophies. Kindness is not weakness. Speak the truth. Your team doesn't have to like you, but they sure have to trust you. Another example from Good to Great, the window and the mirror. And there are many examples out there. Some of the greatest athletic coaches that are currently coaching seem to be experts at practicing this. And the idea of the window and the mirror is there is this pane of glass, and every leader is looking through it. When good things happen and we are successful and we have much to celebrate, we credit the team. And you hear the senior leaders saying, I didn't have much to do with this at all. It was this remarkable team that I have the privilege of working with that has made us so successful. And in most successful organizations, that is the truth. So it's quite easy to say that in an authentic way. And then when something goes wrong, doesn't work out the way it's quite supposed to, that senior leader is looking through this pane of glass, but it becomes a mirror, and he owns it. And the senior leader takes responsibility for the process failure, the problem, and acknowledges that there was a failure of training. There was not effective processes in place, and it I believe, contributes to creating a culture of excellence. Simple things like every office and meeting conference room door should have a window in it, or a window in the wall looking in, so that people can walk by and say, yeah, there's a private meeting going in there, and there are 2 people, and we know those individuals are having a meeting, but it's visible. There is some transparency there. I know that when we believe this to be best practice, we had about 80 doors at Protect that we put a small, about a 2-foot by 6-inch window in the door. No reserved parking spots for senior leaders. And again, this can be a challenge in some organizations, but because of the size. But I would suggest to you, if you have reserved parking spots, it affects your culture, and you really, what you have, well, first of all, the thought would be, if you want to park close, get there early, and if not, the exercise will do you good. Second, if you feel this compelling need to have reserved parking spots, what you probably have is a parking problem, and that in itself affects culture. Next, Margot. Define clear expectations of behavior, and I would encourage management by walking around. Everybody has heard of MBWA. my thoughts on MBWA are these four bullets. I'm being predictable, being approachable, being visible, and being accountable. I'd like to share an example with you, a story with you. My normal day at ProTech was I'd rise around 4:30 or so and get to work about 6. Our teams at ProTech worked 12-hour shifts. It wasn't physical work. They probably fought boredom more than they did fatigue, but they were 12-hour shifts from 7 p to 7 a and 7 a to 7 p. So when I would arrive at 6 o'clock, my standard procedure was to get out on the floor and walk the facility in the same path every day. And with that, it became predictable. I, in the early days, thought that I needed to have something to talk about. I needed a topic when I went out there, and I learned very quickly I didn't need a topic. Folks had been there for 11 hours by 6 a.m., and they had plenty to talk about if there was somebody willing to listen. And so it's important to be approachable. And I think approachable, at least again, it's just a strongly held belief. When you know there's someone there and they want to talk to you, whether you're sitting in their office or whether you're walking the shop floor, you know they're there. And you can either be focused on that thing that you are working on and not allow yourself to be distracted by this person, or you do have that awareness that they're there and quickly acknowledge them and greet them and engage in conversation, being approachable, being visible, being present, being predictable, and being available, present, visible is critical to, I believe, to creating a culture of excellence. And last, I think we all know how important accountability is. But those engagements, those opportunities to run into people, while some of the conversations can be random, I believe that it's also best practice to have something that you want to talk about. You know, those of you in healthcare, and I know there are many in healthcare, more than half of the folks using the Baldrige methodology these days are in healthcare, and they're very, very familiar with rounding. So I'm sure you know how important this is. And this piece on accountability, where someone will come up to you and have a conversation, and typically it will end with, I will look into that. I will get back to you. And with that, you have created an expectation where you will be accountable to that. Often I found myself saying, hey, thanks for the feedback. Thanks for that input. If your expectation is that something's going to change tomorrow, then you're going to be disappointed, I'm afraid. However, if the next time I see you is a week from now, 2 weeks from now, and I haven't gotten back to you or there hasn't been a change, then we all should be disappointed that we are that unaware of the opportunities to improve based on the feedback we get from our team. Next, Marvin. Define clear expectations for behavior. Through team consensus, establish rules of engagement. And there are a couple examples here on the right. This happens to be Mesa, and I'm sure anyone who's been around Baldrige for very long certainly knows of Terry and Kelsey May and the team at Mesa. 3-time Baldrige Award winners, only 3-time Baldrige Award winners. And here are their rules of engagement. Keep it simple. We, not me. Manage the drama. Talk to each other. Own it. Have each other's backs. And this, I like to think of rules of engagement as operationalizing our values, thinking about our values and and putting it on paper, putting it on a plaque, hanging it on the wall. Again, get creative on how you display your rules of engagement, but it is guidance on how we behave every day, how we interact with one another. Senior leaders must model desired behavior. I think that that says enough right there. Expectations for behavior apply to all stakeholders, not just our staff, and that includes, as we talked earlier, our suppliers, our customers, and our community. Next, Martin. Create line of sight. And I love the use of a plan on a page. This happens to be a document that we created for a local school district. And this can be a placemat, it can be a plaque on a wall, it can be everywhere. And it includes our mission, our values, the vision that we have for the organization. We'll call it a big aspirational goal. It identifies strategic priorities. Here they call them strategic objectives. And then how we're going to measure our performance against the strategy that we have for the organization. It's incredibly useful. We see the senior leader, the superintendent of the schools, rarely does he communicate with any of the stakeholders, community leaders, taxpayers, his board, his staff, faculty, students, parents, that he doesn't refer to the plan on the page. And it really is quite effective in telling the story. And we've heard the expression that great leaders have team members who can do a perfect imitation of them when they're not around. And it's been very, very encouraging to see the team at this school district really model the behavior of their senior leader in executing against the plan on the page. Discover your embedded core belief. It was our last Baldrige site visit when the lead examiner on his way out said, you know, I'm not allowed to give you feedback, but I have to tell you that we found an embedded core belief in your organization. You don't have that many employees, and we believe that we spoke to all of them. And we asked them all what's most important at Protech. And they all answered very quickly, and they answered the same thing, and it was safety. Now, we worked real hard at creating that core belief with our organization. It was validated by the folks on the site visit. Yours might be very different, but I would encourage you to think about what is that single thing that if all of your organization, all of your staff were asked what's most important, that they could answer quickly and it would be the same. Cascade your mission values to a vital few objectives. And I think that's really, really important that you have objectives and goals that align with your core beliefs. And if they don't, then you've got misalignment of your goals and objectives. And while it might be a very an initiative that you think could be effective, if there's not alignment with your core beliefs, then you really need to consider whether that's something you should proceed with and begin to use your core beliefs as a screen, as a filter to determine where you want to deploy your precious resources. Include personal goals that align with mission, vision, and values when you do performance reviews. Search for opportunities to connect the team to your customers, some ownership, so that your staff, so that your team are truly invested in the product, in that deliverable to your customer. Begin every monthly meeting, every meeting that you have, with a review of your goal statement, a small scorecard that is consistent, predictable, and reviewed monthly, weekly, whatever cadence you're in having staff meetings, team meetings. Get very, very comfortable with including that goal statement review in each meeting. Certainly the use of quarterly newsletters are very, very effective in helping create line of sight. Next slide, Marco. Again, if we really want to focus on culture as process, either take a few thoughts or themes from this presentation, or better yet, some thoughts that you may come up with on what it would take to create a culture of excellence in your organization. I'm sure there will be customization there, but be very, very intentional about it and identify what those few things are that are critically important to you, and then determine, do you have those processes and practices in place? And if you don't, then prioritize and select the top 2 or 3, and as a leadership team, get serious about making that cultural change within your organization. And we found this to be very effective. Next, Marco. So I have one final story for you, and it is about deploying mission throughout the organization and the importance of considering your mission, your values, your core beliefs in doing your annual strategic planning. Well, we had a senior leadership team focused on preparation for the annual strategic planning activity. And one of our senior leaders said, hey, we are not living our mission. Well, everyone, obviously at that point in time wanted to take exception to that, because we were pretty far along on our Baldrige journey. And our history with our mission was early in our Baldrige journey, as we are working on the profile. I can remember asking the question, hey, do we have a mission statement? And the response was, yeah, we have a mission statement. It's somewhere out there. So someone searched in a drawer, found this crumpled document that was about 30 words long. And so the answer is obvious. We did not have a mission statement. We asked a group of associates to create a mission statement for us that described our purpose. Why do we exist? What are our core beliefs? And took them a little while, but they came up with a mission statement that was perfect. The mission statement they gave us was to foster human potential in a spirit of cooperation and technical innovation for the betterment of our industry, our associates, and our community. Well, we deployed that mission, and we thought we were doing a pretty good job of living our mission, following much of the ideas, some of the things I've shared with you here today. But many years out, this senior leader said, we're not living our mission. And she said, and here's why. We say to foster human potential, and the last stakeholder group that we identify as a community, and there's a group out there that we are not serving aligned with our mission. And she was right. So we went to an organization in our county, Brook Hill, that was focused on adults with developmental disability. And we brought a number of people into our workforce, employed them in the facility, and brought one young lady into our administrative spaces, and her name was Deanna. And from the moment that we hired Deanna, we changed, and we changed for the better. Every day that Deanna was working, she would first show up at my doorstep and say, hi, Paul, how you doing? And she'd come in and give me a big hug. And whether I was having a good day or a bad day, my day got better. And Deanna had the same effect in every organization or every part of our team where she worked. And she worked with us for a number of years. And in 2010, when I retired, announced my retirement, she believed that that was going to affect her job, that she was going to lose her job because I was retiring. And obviously, that wasn't the case. And it didn't take very long for us to assure her that she was going to like the new guy a whole lot better than she liked me, and she was all good with that. The night before my final day, we rented a local restaurant, and for the opportunity for us to invite ProTech employees and families to come by and let me thank them for their remarkable work and the great friendship that had developed. And when the evening was over, there weren't to be any gifts, but there was a table with some gifts and cards on it. We gathered them up, and my wife and I brought them home, and sitting in my kitchen, opening packages and reading cards. And it was bittersweet. Like, I'd worked for U.S. Steel for 42 years and retired, and I was looking forward to that. But I was also leaving something that I loved. And there was one gold cylinder box that I opened, and inside was a note. It was from Deanna. And Deanna said, "Paul, thank you for letting me work at ProTech. I know I have a disability. Down syndrome people, the only folks who love them are their parents. I felt loved at ProTech Coating Company. Thank you for supporting me in Special Olympics. Go Steelers. Have a great retirement. You are a gold medal boss." And she gave me one of her Special Olympic gold medals. Well, I already wasn't in very good shape with this bittersweet feeling I had on retirement. But as you can imagine, it got pretty emotional sitting in my kitchen. So I tell this story for a reason. We used our mission and values, our core beliefs, to make strategic and tactical decisions. The decision to build a $600 million addition to our facility was driven by our core beliefs, our mission and values. But the decision to hire Deanna was also driven by our mission. And I would suggest to you that that decision in many ways was as important as the decision we made to expand at ProTech Coating Company. Well, let's take a look at Deanna on our next slide, Marco. So there she is. There's Deanna. And I would suggest to all of you, as you consider how you might be able to operationalize culture within your organization and build it with process, that culture truly matters. Thanks for the opportunity to present, Margo.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I think sometimes people often think that culture is soft, but you have shown how you can make it be a systematic process, which is what Baldrige aims to do. So great work there. If anyone has any questions for Paul, again, you can type them in the question box. If you'd like me to unmute your mic, you can raise your hand and I'll unmute your mic, but I know that Paul would be happy to take any questions that you may have. Okay, we have a question here. It was just a comment from our friend Kurt Schock. Very powerful, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. That's very kind.
Any other questions or comments? I know Paul would be happy to answer them. So, Paul, what is Deanna doing today? Do you know?
So Deanna is retired from ProTech. She is that picture that you saw there. She is an avid supporter of Leipzig High School athletics and has been forever. We have, my wife and I have a little scholarship at Leipzig High School, and it's named after Deanna, named for Deanna. And it is the Deanna Dillinger Team Spirit Award. And the idea of the scholarship is to kind of model the enthusiasm that Deanna had for Leipzig sports And it's to go to the student athlete who was worried much more about the name on the front of the jersey than the one on the back. And that student that, again, might not have been the scholarship athlete, but was so enthusiastic and so supportive of creating a winning culture on their team.
That's fantastic. Great.
And she still attends every football game and basketball game.
Good for her. There is a handout of Paul's presentation in your control panel in the handout section, if you want to download that so you have a copy of it. But now we'll go ahead and introduce our next Third Thursday webinar. Is going to be taking place on October 21st at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And our guest presenter is Mimi Mary. She is the Human Resources Program Coordinator with the City of Henderson, Nevada. And I know Mimi is debating between two topics that she'll present, but my guess is it's around workforce because she is over the human resource group there in the City of Henderson. So we will get information with more details out to you, but mark this in your calendar. And thank you so much for joining us today. If you are interested in starting your Baldrige journey and you have not yet started, here is contact information for the programs that are sponsoring this webinar series. And we would be happy to help you as you get started on your journey. So thank you again, Paul. It was a great learning experience for us today. And thank you to all of you for attending. Hope to see you next week and have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.